Hi everyone and welcome back to this week's episode of JDP's Questions, Wings and Things. This week we have both Andrew and Alex from Brisbane's S02. Let's get this going. Andrew, Alex, S02, lovely to have you boys on board. I know that this was a bit of 11th hour scenario for yourself on here, courtesy of.
Yeah, pretty much.
But thank you for being a good sport and making it down here today.
That's okay.
It's appreciated. So if you'd like to take your first wing, fellas, we can get rolling with this one.
All right.
I won't go too mental.
No, you're all right. Oh,
That'll
yeah,
be
true.
a dollar. I know you're okay resources, so again, it's...
I kind of deserve anything that happens to me at this point.
I would suggest, your mindset for getting poor Alex down here today is quite sadist, to say the least, I reckon. First question for you.
Okay.
Probably one that you're going to be able to rattle off relatively easy given current climate, but what has been Yes Digital's most defining moment over the past 12 months, for example?
Yeah, good question.
I'll let you answer this one first because you've been there for quite a bit longer than I have. It'll also let me digest.
Yeah. Yep. So hard to think and talk and speak and deal with the hot sauce. I would say off the top of my head.
Bit the back, yeah.
Was give me one sec.
Wow.
Oh, that actually really catches. When COVID first hit, so to speak, when COVID hit, we put the foot on the accelerator rather than backing off.
Yep.
And we also switched all the money that we have as a business and myself and Alex, that's the client's money. So we take care of them and they take care of us. And it was a time when we're okay because we're relatively big enough and we're in an industry where if some people pull back from marketing real quick. Yep. Some people lean into it.
What's it? Isn't it an additional expense that they'd rather not incur, for example? Yeah.
But then other businesses lean into it, and it's one of those things where we're not quite like recession proof, but it's closer than a lot of businesses. Certainly than a lot of businesses in this case who relied entirely on foot traffic, for example. So we figured we were relatively in a very lucky position.
Yes. And
that we would turn our focus outward. And we did a lot of, we call them stimulus packages because it's a recognizable phrase.
I understand.
But essentially just working for free for businesses, whether that's advice-based, we stepped up the amount of content we were putting up massively.
Nice.
And then just offered either heavily discounted or free services or free. And then as you kept going, so heavily discounted and then progressively
Scale
less.
up.
Yeah, so to help them recover. And actually, business-wise, it worked out. It ended up working out quite well for us, but it was entirely because we decided we'd think about us after, and first ask, how can we help you?
I'll be honest, I've been so focused on the heat of this thing that I can't remember the question. So you're gonna have to ask me again.
It was what's been more of the defining moment over the past 12 months for Yes Digital.
Well, I think for me, it's coming in like. So I come from a big sales background, and so I really understand the psychological weight that people attach to money, and especially if you're running a business, like if you don't have money, you can't do anything else. So coming into Yes Digital and understanding that they had things like stimulus packages, and ways to actually assist their clients to work was really quite helpful from my end, especially from an account management and talking to the clients on the front end. It's knowing that we are there to help them out. And then also, I guess from a personal side of things, understanding that the business is open to progressing, open to evolving, and open to changing quite rapidly and quite quickly, which I feel was made super obvious to everyone in this year, but that they have work to do really quite well. So you have to be able to change. I think that's been made obvious to every other industry, but thankfully, Yes Digital's picked it up quite easily, to be honest.
I love it.
Yeah. It sort of just lingers mainly in your mouth. My stomach's okay for now, but my mouth is cooking. So,
okay,
it is what it is.
Let's progress. Let's progress to the second one here, fellas. Have a bite, still have a bite. What type of businesses should be approaching Yes Digital, if they wish to expand their digital footprint and enhance their revenues? And also, what would be the best piece of advice that you could offer a client that's wishing to enhance their digital footprint?
Okay, I would say the answer's kind of built in to the question there, where any business that wants to expand their digital footprint.
I'm really happy that you're struggling with these way more obviously than I am. It makes me happy.
You did well done, mate. You went straight over it.
Yeah, any business that if they meet that criteria, then it's definitely worth having a chat. But I'll meet with any business wanting to grow their business over hot sauce. I'm down for that. But also happy to chat with you. Then the biggest tip.
Yeah, that's what I'm after.
We start with a goal.
Yep.
So
start with the end goal, yeah.
Yep, and then build a strategy to achieve that.
Yep, understood.
Yeah, try to put numbers and a timeline to it. Ooh.
That's getting hotter now.
The eyes are beginning to well up on Alex there, I think.
Oh yeah.
What would be, I guess, a tip from a new client associate perspective, that you got someone talking to you that is relatively green, relatively lacking digital footprint, wishing to enhance their revenue as well? How would you go around scaling that conversation?
Well, if you're going to scale it, you have to start at where the scale's going. So
yep. As Andrew's saying, yeah, the goal there, yeah.
Yeah. So again, you're starting with the goal. You're trying to find out exactly where they're wanting to take it, but not just from like, my business wants to get X. It's like what's the intention? What's your greater purpose? What's your why behind the entire business?
Yes.
Because it really gets you salivating. Because if you're not like looking at that, then it's going to be really hard to get them out of like your dips. Because the thing is, I think that most people perceive marketing as like a one-track trip. You know what I mean? So sort of it's just supposed to keep going up and nothing else. Whereas most people don't realize that it actually goes up and down. During the ups, super hard to relate back to that goal. Super easy to relate back to that goal. Super easy to keep people sort of directed and understand the purpose of their marketing.
Yeah.
When it goes down, different ball game, because again, you have that emotional attachment. So
Very true, yeah.
So it's really, really important to realign them back to their greater goal, to the greater purpose of themselves and their business, so that you can always realign to that.
Like it.
So a strategy is much more than just where do you want your business to be in 3 months, 6 months, a year. It's like, what is everything behind this? And then it's my job to really find out what that is, but then also to ensure that we realign back to that every single time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Good answer, fellas.
Yeah, cool. Gee, that's hitting me hard.
Bro.
I did see you sit back at one point there and you just went, oh, yeah. People who look at both SEO and SEM from an exterior, and people that are quite green to it, don't necessarily recognise the difference or the separate impacts both can have. How would you explain and advise around both SEO and SEM to a client, again, that's coming to you going, I've got a strategy, or I believe I've got a strategy?
I've heard a lot of people pitch these as not mutually exclusive, but two different options. Not quite mutually exclusive, but like something that you don't tend to encourage doing them both together.
Yes.
And I think that's fundamentally incorrect.
Okay.
Very hard.
Good man.
There's a really, really old phrase that Google used to use that I haven't seen in a long time. And Googling it, couldn't find it either. But I think because it sounds very Orwellian, 1 + 1 = 3, which you could see sinister overtones. But it had a lot of truth to it. What it meant was that Google and SEO didn't just get you both results together. They definitely didn't have a diminishing returns. They actually improved each other. And the basic reason for that is that things that make your Google ads work well,
yes,
and things that make your SEO work well, have a little overlap.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, the most obvious example is website speed helps both.
Yep, okay.
So they actually assist each other and you get better returns. Another thing that people kind of lean one way or the other is SEO can be more beneficial in terms of ROI strictly on a long-term basis, and Google Ads has the capacity to get you business on a much shorter time span. So starting both at the same time, people tend to switch to SEO eventually and drop the Google Ads. But generally, when I see businesses paying attention to their marketing and does that, they'll generally put ads back on because it helps together. It doesn't take away at all.
It's extremely holistic because while SEO is intended to bring overall value to you as an expert in your industry in the long term. So it's not something that you, just because of the way that it's fundamentally designed, you can't be number one on SEO and get all the results in a week. It just doesn't work that way.
Fully understand.
While Google Ads allows you to go towards the immediate traffic looking for results or looking for services or products, whatever it may be for a client, much more immediately. And then on an additional facet, just like a bonus, then social media allows for greater exposure in regards to brand, in regards to awareness, in regards to consideration of who you are and what you stand for. All of these things matter. And I think maybe people have lost that sort of understanding along the way, but all of them are necessary. So yes, SEO may help you with one, and if you can only do SEO, we'll find a way to make it work for you. But at the end of the day, the thing is you need to do everything if you want to really establish yourself as a business. And so again, that relates back to the goals, it relates to everything else, but we need to find out what you want and then find out which of these specific services help which specific aspect of your business. It's not one fixes everything.
Okay, that makes sense as well, yeah. Thank you, fellas. You both seem way more composed now than way back.
That one just hit the breath. I think what's messing with me is that each one is doing something different. Like they're like...
Well put. Yeah, disclaimer, Alex didn't know he was coming till about 30 minutes before this started.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, lovely. So, question for you fellas on this one is around emerging trends.
Yes.
What have you chaps actually seen as the emerging trend or trends that are set to stay? Thank you. Set to stay, continuing, evolving, and what is it that you're looking to adopt as a business, if applicable?
So I don't know if it really fits into trend, but I think it's so important. I haven't actually seen anyone not working with Yes Digital act on it so far. There's people out there, but they're just trying to not make it not require any sort of technical background in it. But there's different text ad types that you can use on Google search ads.
Okay.
And they have various. Well, they used to have various advantages and disadvantages, but what's happening now is the new responsive search ads format. It's not that new anymore, but it's becoming the only available format. So there are people who are logging into accounts in America, creating new accounts, and they can't create expanded text ads.
Okay.
There's just no option for it, only responsive. And that is the start of the cycle of transitioning out of having expanded for anyone, and you have to use responsive. Because if Google has looks at it, or not looks at, but has essentially look at accounts that don't have any responsive, they're not just going to turn them off when they want to not have that format anymore. But so they'll let it run, but what they will do is basically penalize it. Penalize might be too much of a harsh word, but you won't really be able to compete with people A, doing what Google wants them to do, but B, there's a good reason Google wants them to do that, and it is because it's more impactful. It actually is better for the business, because it's better for consumers. They find more relevant things, more appealing ads. That's better. Everyone wins out of that. So they're transitioning into only responsive search ads, but they won't quite make you do it. They'll just nudge you towards it. And if you don't, you will start seeing increasingly worse and worse results. And if you wait till last minute, you'll be behind the 8 ball.
Understood.
In terms of the AI catching up for your account.
Yep.
And just to compare it back to when expanded text ads came out, they replaced just text ads, which aren't a thing at all anymore. But we saw a very similar thing. If you were running text ads in the era where they had officially replaced them, they ported them over to expanded text ads, but they basically didn't have the same features, just was an underutilized one. Those accounts had almost no chance of success. So really, really important to jump on that as soon as possible.
I kind of look at trends from a different perspective, like sort of more so like from where the market might perceive them. And I guess maybe if any of like your listeners have like listened to Gary Vee's, it's very much a philosophy that he follows along as well. But there's a lot of new platforms that come along almost every single day, and the majority of them don't last. But that's not to say that a majority of them don't work. They bring in a lot of sort of popularity and a lot of sort of following in the time that they're there.
Yep.
Like there were so many people that were on Vine, for example, that blew up and just really took off. And when Vine disappeared, they transferred their talents over to YouTube and were able to continue along Instagram, so on and so forth. We're seeing a similar thing happen right now with TikTok. Where a lot of people are, and it's super popular. Like it had one of the quickest growth rates to 100 million followers. I think the quickest out of any platform before. And yet again, it's seeing quite a lot of issues, but people are coming out of it. And so I think what I'm trying to say is that although these platforms come and go, these trends sort of make their way into the market, and they'll continue to do so forever, especially in like this age.
Yes, absolutely.
Really, I think what's important about them is that I think everyone should capitalize on those trends and bring whatever new traffic they can from them. But it's a huge reminder and relates to your last question that you need to build a presence across everything. You need to understand how a market works on that platform, how someone behaves on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Google, etc.
Like it.
But then insert your goal, your strategy, who you want to be according to that market.
Yeah.
So I guess really what I'm trying to say is that different trends will come and go forever. That's sort of just how it works. So it's important to always stand true to what you are, but then find a way to fit it into that trend.
Yeah,
don't let the trend sort of decide how you behave.
And dictate,
But find out how you can fit within each respective trend instead.
I definitely wanted to add, if you give maybe you've already seen it, but if you give a Google to it, you can find graffiti from ancient Rome. And this ties back to advertising, I promise. Graffiti from ancient Rome. And what a lot of it is, besides poorly drawn dicks, and we're still no better at drawing dicks with texture on walls that don't belong to us. But there were ads for prostitutes and bars all over like public toilets in ancient Rome, and they would just be etched in, and they would say that it's like cool for a good time. Yeah. But they said that it wasn't quite cool, but it was etch for a good time. But it'll tell you the address of
services.
Maria, that's slightly Romanized. Maria is at this corner and she's great and then they'll etch a position into the wall. But
serious?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's absolutely worth Googling Roman graffiti because it's interesting to see how much they haven't changed. And that is a form of marketing. Absolutely. And so the reason I bring this up is that people sometimes stress about trends, and they are great to stay on top on. You can get a lot of benefit out of it in the way that Alex was describing, but especially in 2020, people are worried about changing trends. Yeah. And I think it's important to remember how much has not only been the same in the digital era to the traditional marketing era, to even going back to ancient Rome and well beyond. The first ever marketing campaign, someone holding up a sign and saying, there's a great bar down here, 2 for 1 jugs of mead. You need awareness and offers always work. Yeah. The trends are interesting, they're great to stay on top of, but so much of marketing is fundamentally the same, and it always has been. And I'm pretty comfortable saying it always will be.
Good play. Right, crescendo time.
Really?
That's
the most
should have done that to him.
On any of them thus far. I see how it is. That's okay.
This is the tastiest one. I will solidly stick by that. The tastiest one a lot. Right.
Yeah. And for everyone that wasn't here before, he also said this one lingers the longest. Yeah. So there's that.
That was a bigger warning. Let's go.
Right, fellas. So from a tech and business perspective, which clients are you seeing out there, or which organisations are you seeing out there that are doing things right at the moment? It doesn't have to be a comparable business. What tech companies out there do you think that are continuing to strive and get through and continue to do things right?
I really like Zinja. They're e-bank isn't the right word.
They're down in Sydney, aren't they?
I think so. But there's a word for it. A something bank, a smart bank. They're a smart bank. There's no branches. You get a card, but you mostly use Apple Pay or Google Pay. Because they basically they'll set you up with Apple Pay before your card arrives. So they're just a high tech bank, and they did two things that they had planned that hasn't been able to pan out. So one of the things that they did was they had a much higher interest rate than any other bank at the moment.
Yep.
They put up a high interest rate when everyone else was going down.
Yep.
And they also had a roadmap for features as they were being released on what is it called? Trello. They had a Trello board. You good?
We're good, fam.
Three categories. Oh, it is picking up.
Yeah.
3 categories.
So
it's like
regret that
now,
second bite.
soon, later.
You went, well, it's nice. Sorry, Andrew.
That's okay. No.
What were you saying about Trello?
They had now, soon, and later for when their new features are coming out.
Yes.
And with 2020 and all of the developments that have happened since they made that Trello board, they haven't been able to meet a lot of their goals.
Yep.
And they also, the Trello board became almost redundant because, not redundant, it became a negative. Because they would communicate that they would do something,
Yes.
and through no fault of their own, they couldn't do it. And that was worse than not knowing about a feature that might come out and surprise you. So they dropped the Trello board, but they did it with an email that went out and explained really transparently the reasons why. And that had that emphasis on communication, even in having the Trello board,
Yep.
the whole way through. I just think it's a great, not everything goes to plan. And what could have been really disappointing was actually became a reason to trust them more. So I thought that was really cool.
Nice. That's a bloody good answer, mate.
I would say I'll give you a local company that I really quite like,
Yep.
and then I'll give you a big one that I personally quite like. The company that I really like here in Australia and they're local down the Gold Coast is High Smile Teeth.
We know that, yeah.
So I've obviously been following them for a little while.
Yep.
Probably since they first started bringing up. And
They blew up very quick, didn't they?
they're
In a
fantastic.
positive way, yeah.
And for the people that go back far enough and really remember, social influencers weren't that big of a thing before then. And so I actually remember sitting down with Alex, and he was telling me, he's like, well, we're thinking about going and like paying this famous person and she's gonna put up a photo for us
They definitely did it.
and then we're gonna put it up, and I'm like, I mean, it makes sense, but it's very different. Remember, the Landscapes was like 2015-ish, something like that. It wasn't a thing. And yet they stuck through it and they really followed it and they really pushed the barrel in regards to that new strategy. And lo and behold, people have careers as social influencers today.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so that was something that I always extremely commended them for the respect they were able to sort of think something different, capitalize on a potential trend, and really sort of utilize someone else's leverage. They've really pushed off the backbone of that. They've really been able to grow further from that and like expand their business and create a global brand on its way, as they say, to target like Colgate and all those guys.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in regards to sort of companies locally that do some really, really great stuff, I find myself probably most impressed with them.
Yep.
And then probably like an international company that I like will be Classic Tesla. Like I think Elon Musk is probably one of the best marketers in the world.
Yeah.
Yes, he's an engineer. Yes, he's a business owner. Yes, he's a CEO and all this kind of stuff. But he's one of the best marketers in the world. A lot of my friends know I followed Tesla quite closely, and when he broke the Cybertruck window, they were like, "Nah, he's done." And I'm like, "Just wait."
It's almost part of the machinery of it, isn't it?
It was part of the machinery because every single person ended up jumping on Twitter, ended up jumping online and just hating on it and being like, "He's finally failed, he's wrecked himself." What they didn't realize is the volume of people that actually ended up saying that, and the attention that it brought, and the fact that within 24 hours he sold $1.2 billion of deposits for his Cybertruck.
I didn't realise that was a scale of deposits that was actually.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like
Wow.
he understood the market today is very clickbaity, very loves to have a little bit of a laugh, very much loves to sort of like poke at you wherever they can. He was able to see that something like that would happen. That's why he smacked it an extra couple times. He knew it wouldn't break, but he knew if he put enough pressure to it, it should. And so it was enough to just get enough interest around it. And I guess what I'm trying to relate to those and both of them is they were able to understand the dynamics of this market, of this age, of 2020 and every year sort of coming from here in this technological age. And both of them were able to market more effectively than anyone else. But neither of those marketing methods at the time were conventional. None of them were ones that like, you never saw Toyota being like, grab a new Camry,
smash it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't the way that people went about their marketing, nor did people prior to High Smile really go about getting a social influencer to promote their brand.
Correct, yeah.
But they have gone on to sort of, you know, push the barriers of how people market nowadays.
Yeah.
So they're probably like two companies, local and international, that I'm really quite fond of, and I think it barely scratched the surface.
Fellas, Andrew, Alex, Yes Digital, thank you for making it along.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, fellas. We shall see you next week on JDP's Questions, Wings and Things. Look after yourselves. Thank you. Good on you, mate. Good on you.